All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Until then, adios.
Conversations from the Darkside.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations from the Darkside. I'm your good buddy, your MC for this evening, Amigo Aaron, joined by my partner in crime, Master of Darkness. Give it up for Jack Flack.
Whoa, welcome.
Look at that. You look sort of undead already, my friend.
I can't do that voice. All right.
Well, you know, this may come as a shock to you, Flack, but it's been, I don't know, 8-10 months since we did a Conversation from the Darkside.
I thought maybe Bigfoot took over the channel or something.
Well,
What's going
you know,
on?
we had to wait for more spooky things to happen, but they have happened. Creepy, horrible, disgusting things. We're going to get into all of it tonight.
Well, thank you for that introduction.
Boat's disembodied voice in the background. We are going to get into everything tonight, but what we'd like to have is your participation. You'll see at the bottom of the screen various ways you can communicate with us. They don't require a Ouija board. You can call the 24/7 automated voicemail line at any time, by the way, 304-397-0810, and you will get right into the messaging area where you could leave your message and we'll play it on the show. You can also text that number and we'll look at your text on the show. And old school, you can send us an email at thedarkside@mail.com if you would like to send us an email. We should have a lot of fun tonight. We've got some interesting topics to go over, and it should be a hopefully quick and entertaining 2 hours. We're going to get settled in here, and we will be back in Two Shakes of a Lamb's Tail to get this thing fired up. Feel free to email or call in now.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
It's the world's only Mothman Museum, the premier destination for Mothman fans. The Mothman Museum is the only place where you can see the largest collection of props and memorabilia from the Mothman Prophecies movie, and read rare historical documents from the Scarborough and Mallet Mothman eyewitnesses themselves documenting what they experienced that fateful night on November 15th, 1966. The museum is located right next to the Mothman statue on Main Street in Point Pleasant.
Just a gravel star on a mountain road. From all the tales I've been told, there's a monstrous ape soaked in sap atop a genuine 50s tourist trap. Step right up, that'll be $6. And when the tour bell rings, you gotta trust your luck. No hypertension or vertigo. If you wanna dive in that mystery hole.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back once again. It's your buddy, your good pal, Amigo Aaron, Jack Flack in the house. And we've got a first of hopefully stream of folks that'll be rolling in here. It's none other than my amigo, Boat. What's going on, Boat?
Good evening, everyone. I've recently scrubbed the spooky makeup from my face that I was wearing earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I planned on wearing it for tonight, but I was afraid the longer I left it on, the harder it would be to remove. And I can tell you this.
Yeah.
That when I first applied the baby oil and I started scrubbing and it didn't come off, I feared the worst. Then I remembered that the instructions told me to mix a concoction of baby oil and rubbing alcohol a sort of a turpentine smelling thing, and then I just dunked my face in it for a while, and then I worked it real hard with the old cotton ball, and gradually it wore off.
Was that a makeup pen that you bought, or was it like a Sharpie or a...
This was I posted a picture in the Boat-O-Vision channel. This was a Dollar Tree tattoo set, and it was just labeled tattoo. That was it.
That's all you need. You're nuts, by the way, for even thinking about buying that. You know, you look like some sort of, kind of a satanic clown or something. You know what I mean?
That's what I was looking for. You know, Halloween, it's spooky. Got to be satanic and clownish.
What?
Are you? While we're on the subject, just to jump in real quick, because it comes up a lot. In fact, we talked about it on your stream that night when Killer Clowns came up. Anybody? What's the scoop on clowns? Are we scared of clowns, guys?
I think clowns are frightening in the best of circumstances because they are a grotesque, their makeup is like a grotesque caricature of the normal human face. And when you add anything that's even, it's, you know, do you know who came up with the word uncanny?
No.
It was Sigmund Freud. He developed that word. And the word, it means that something that is familiar yet unsettling. And I, first of all, I couldn't believe that Freud just pulled that out of the air. Like he made that up, because we talk about uncanny stuff all the time. And so clowns are right there where it's like, you got a clown, it's like a humanoid figure, but his face looks all weird. His features are elongated and twisted. And that's even before they do anything creepy. So they're uncanny from the outset. But then as soon as you include anything like not funny that the clown is doing, then it gets real dark real quick.
You know, I'm of the age where I grew up. I was the same age and coincidentally had the same name as the boy from the movie Poltergeist. His name was Robbie, and he had that bedroom with a window with a tree outside. I had a bedroom with a window with a tree outside. And he had that clown thing. So I don't remember ever being scared of clowns until I watched one in a horror movie come out and pull a kid underneath his bed and try to choke him. So that was really, I never thought of clowns as being scary before that moment. Now, interestingly, I went to Spirit Halloween last week, and I was amazed at how many things they have this year from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I don't know if they made some sort of product arrangement or something, some sort of licensing deal with them, but there was Killer Clowns from Outer Space on every aisle. They had the giant animatronics, they had masks, they had little tiny maquettes, all those things. And I thought most of the people in here shopping were not alive when that movie came out. You know, it's like advertising things to us, you know, from the 70s or 80s. So
it wasn't like it was a huge hit either. I mean, it gained a cult following, but I mean, like, I saw it well after it was out.
I kind of think about Killer Clowns from Outer Space being like the sci-fi version of Rocky Horror.
Well,
I could see that. I mean,
nowhere near. It's not in the same stratosphere as Rocky Horror.
Because I mean, sure, you don't see a lot of Rocky Horror action these days, but like maybe like 20 years ago, Killer Clowns is now what Rocky Horror was 20 years ago.
Well, again, I think there's a huge quality discrepancy between the two, if I'm honest. But that's the movie critic in me, and also the fact that the soundtrack is epic. But
but as far as being like a horror movie, I mean, when a clown kills somebody with a cotton candy gun, you know what I mean? Like that's not straight up horror. Yeah. That's kind of
it is
playing
goofy.
Around. Yeah. So, but so I and you know what? The only thing that's ever really scared me about clowns, remember a few years ago when there was that rash of sightings where people would just dress up as clowns and just stand by the side of the road. And I thought, you know what? You can tell which states it is legal to open carry in and which ones it's not, because no one would do that in Oklahoma.
Not twice. That's exactly what I thought. You just like I want to be shot now, because they would be shot dead. You know, you were just getting back to what you were saying about Poltergeist. You know, that movie, I don't know what the first big time film was where a clown did something particularly vile. I believe that happened in one of the Friday 13th or a Halloween. I do recall a scene with a kid dressed as a clown at the end or something, but that scene in Poltergeist with that clown was absolutely drop dead scary. I remember seeing that when I was in middle school, and it freaked me out, man. You know, that was no good. So, I mean, I wonder, because when I was a kid, clowns were great. I loved clowns. They were the embodiment of, like, circus. They were fun. I never thought of them as being evil at all, you know?
Yeah. Now, I never had a scary clown doll, but I remember when that came out, I had a Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist doll.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, are you going to be scared of a guy with a monocle? Like, it's just not that scary, you know? So that thing never frightened me. So, and then, the only other clown that I knew was Ronald McDonald, who's going to be scared of a guy. I mean, back then,
No,
not scared. Now I'm scared of cholesterol.
My students,
Yeah.
one of my 7th grade clarinet players dressed up as bloody Ronald McDonald today. for Halloween dressing.
Oh, no. I
was not a fan.
No, you can't take a childhood classic like that and make it like, I don't want to see, Cabbage Patch Vampire.
But that's like, isn't that what Garbage Pail Kids are?
Some of them, yeah. But those have been around forever. I mean, I know they're making a
Yeah.
comeback now, but I thought they were dumb back then. I've never got into the whole thing, but some people like them. They like to collect them and stuff.
I'm not a big fan either.
Moving on down the line here, because this is the we've just a few days as we record this from Halloween, just 3 short days. Last year we kind of touched on briefly sort of Halloween traditions and stuff, but I like to know it just as a personal note, and I'll start with you, Flack. What do you traditionally do? Like, what are the things you do at Halloween? Not just necessarily trick or treat, but just like in the month leading up to it. Are there movies you watch? Are there places you and your family or your wife go? What do you get into? What's your thing?
Well, definitely you have to. I mean, October 1st, you have to go to all the stores that don't normally sell Halloween things, and you have to start looking around. You got to go to, places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's and all those places that don't normally, cater to that stuff. But, you got to go look and find, who's got the new Halloween stuff, the new display stuff. So that's always something that we do. The whole month of October in Oklahoma and many places, this is the time of year where the leaves change. It's not just they haven't fallen off the branches. They're starting to do that, but everything starts changing colors. And so sometimes I will go out and take pictures, because when you look at pictures, it almost seems it seems strange to see trees with, bright orange or red leaves and things like that. So, but the other thing that I love to do is I have tubs and tubs. I know this is difficult to imagine. I have tubs of Halloween display items. I mean, some of them are so old, like I don't even remember when we bought them or where we got them. And, October 1st, that's, my wife has drawn that line in the sand. It's something interesting about Halloween and decorating in general. Like, if you imagine in March, if you came home and you're like, hey, I got this awesome skull and I'm going to put it on the fireplace mantle. I mean, that's weird if you do that in March, but you do that, and I think even September, it's a little unconventional. But October 1st, man, I will go out there and I'll be like, look at this. You know what I bought? I bought a severed foot. It's like a rubber foot, and then the ankle's kind of bloody. There's a little rubber bone sticking out of it, and I've just been moving in different places around the house, and so that's one of my favorite things about October and this time of year, is that it gives you, like, everybody has permission to just do weird stuff. And if you want to have a skeleton in your room, or you want to hang up crazy things or whatever, or eat Frankenberry cereal and all those things, like October, it's like everybody has permission. You got a license to enjoy that stuff for a whole month. Now, again, November 1st, by Thanksgiving, the severed foot will not be in the living room. My wife will take care of that. It'll be gone. But for this 1 month, you get to go all out and bring those things out.
Is the giant skeleton going to stay out there, or is it coming in?
I do live in a neighborhood that has a homeowners association, and I have not been contacted about placing a 12-foot skeleton in my yard, but I got a feeling if that's up on Christmas morning, like, I don't know that that's going to fly. And I have of course, thought about like, can you get a Santa hat up on that thing? Can you
Jack
get
Skellington,
a
right?
pilgrim hat, on Thanksgiving. So maybe year round. That's certainly something to consider. The more Halloween things you get, where are you going to store all this stuff? And some of
coffin.
it. Well, you know what? I read a thing online that there has been a run on 9 and 10-foot Christmas tree bags, storage bags, because if you break it down, that's the perfect thing to store a 12-foot skeleton in.
I love it. Now, Boat, you're in an interesting position because your wife, you're married to someone who's from Thailand. I don't know if Halloween's even celebrate over there or celebrate the same way. What do you and Eve do around this time of the year?
Well, it's funny. I've over the years I've introduced Eve to things that Halloween culture type things, but she coming from Thailand, they don't really have any sort of holiday that celebrates sort of being scared and spooky things and stuff like that. And to be honest, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like feeling scared, and she doesn't like stuff that makes her scared. So I try and explain that like it doesn't have to be like terrifying scare, like slasher movie scared. It's just supposed to be a little bit like spooky. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but right. I'll tell you, the things that I always think about this time of year is I think about getting dark. It gets dark a lot sooner. It seems like all of a sudden it's 6 o'clock and it's dark outside. I think about drinking hot apple cider. In fact, I poured myself a nice steaming cup of hot apple cider
in a sippy
drinking
cup.
That. Yep, sippy cup. I can't be trusted with adult cups. I just love, like Rob said, looking outside. October is my favorite month because you get the leaves changing, you get cooler weather, and it's just beautiful. It's after the first frost, so all the insects are dead, and so you can go out and walk around and just kind of enjoy stuff one more time. It's like the send off to the nice weather before we enter into our winter phase.
Very good, very good. I normally here at the Aaron house, we've got a big thing with Halloween decorations and lights and the whole 9 yards. I mean, we've got a line of Halloween boxed Halloween outfits from the 60s and 70s and 50s that stay up full time, in fact, in our living room. But this year we had sort of some family stuff going on that it hasn't quite felt like Halloween normally. And we did do this. The first thing, we know it's Halloween time when we all sit down and watch The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Disney animated cartoon. We love that, and we watch that every year, and we did watch that, and we watched a few things here and there, Simpsons Halloween stuff, but for the most part, it's been kind of low-key this year, so this is sort of one of the bigger Halloween things I've done since the season started. I'm looking forward to trick-or-treat. We trick-or-treat up here on Monday, and the boy has decided to go out one more time and go around the block. He's 13, and he's going to be a pretty big trick-or-treater, but I think we can slip him through, although I went out when I was at least 16, as I recall. So I'm sure we can.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you go around the block, do you just go around the block, or do you go down into the rich area?
We go into every conceivable part of this development.
Okay.
Including
do you
all
leave the
hilly
development,
parts.
or do you go over to Mill Creek Crossing where the good stuff is?
I don't, because there's no safe way to cross there without going on the highway. So we don't normally do that one. But yeah, I guess we have just sort of a traditional Halloween setup here when it comes to that sort of thing. So we're going to switch gears and get into some more paranormal conversation here in just a moment. We're going to cut to a break. We'll be right back. Again, if you're interested in contacting us or having your story read, or even hopping in our Zoom channel, you can access Zoom via our Discord. Just look at Conversations from the Darkside, and all the Zoom information is there. You can call your voicemails in, 304-397-0810. You can also text at that same number, and you will be talking to a voicemail. So just leave your comment, and you'll be good to go. You can also reach us at thedarkside@email.com. You can leave us a note there. We'll be back in 2 shakes. Stick with us. This is Conversations from the Dark Side.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
That's right, Jim. We're here on the grounds where the most recent Mothman sighting has occurred, and I gotta say, it's pretty creepy out here. It was last seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, terrorizing 2 elderly ladies. The poor old ladies were just trying to enjoy their bingo night when Mothman appeared out of nowhere. Oh,
Do not fear the Mothman. Please leave all windows and doors unlocked when you come to visit Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back in action. You know, while we were on break there, we were talking about the Farnham, I guess it's the Farnham Carnival or Farnham Fun area there in Unger, West Virginia. One of the weirder places you can go where this guy collects discarded giant advertisement statues and stuff like a Big Boy and an old amusement park roller coasters that nobody wanted and weird stuff like that. There's a lot of these weird places around this state. We're very fortunate to have a ton of these things. And since we had Boat Fest over the summer, Flack got to check some of these places out for the first time. Flack, what did you think of these nutty? You're into nutty stops, so you had to enjoy these, I'm guessing.
They were great. Aaron and there was a whole group of us. We got to go see the Mothman Museum. Now, I was sort of familiar with Mothman, but I think I had run some of the different legends together. Like I think I had kind of mashed Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster together. So it was great to go to the museum. It was great to see the story. It's always funny to me. Like, I think most people agree what Bigfoot looks like. Like, I think everybody knows what Bigfoot looks like. But when you go to the Mothman Museum, there's like, well, here's 17 different things Mothman kind of looks like. Like he might have looked like this. He might have looked like this. I also didn't know just, that Mothman, when was the most recent rash of sightings of Mothman?
It would have been in, I believe, 68. I think
there was really only one rash.
Yeah,
right?
there was one series of them over a period of a couple months, I believe. I know less than a year. So he came and gone. Now there have been people that say they've seen him in other parts of West Virginia, and then even up to Chicago. I've heard tale that he's been sighted. But the ones in Point Pleasant took place in the late 60s. It obviously affected the town because they've got a museum based on something that came for less than a year, and it was 40 years ago or whatever. So
listen, you get something like that, you lean into it. You know what I mean? I mean, and they have gone in and I don't remember the name, but we went to that afternoon. All of us that went on that little tour to the museum and to go see some of the sites that Mothman reportedly visited. We went to a local ice cream parlor, and in this ice cream parlor, there were giant floor to ceiling murals or paintings, one of Bigfoot, one of the Flatwoods Monster, and one of Mothman. And I thought, I mean, this is a town that gets it. You know what I mean? Like you get that and you hang on to it. Like nobody's going to Bodunk, West Virginia, whatever, because somebody planted a tree 50 years ago. Nobody cares about that. You got a monster, you got to put a sculpture, and they have how tall is this statue that they put on in the middle of Main Street?
Well,
I'd say it's 10 feet.
He's on a podium. He's a large. They didn't make it small. It's funny. The sculpture of that has passed, but he used to live right across the street from me.
Yeah.
And my brother
Really?
my brother actually has done some work for I believe it's his daughter, because that stuff's still in the family. Like they own the copyright to the statue and whatnot for like postcards and shirts and whatnot. Because as you saw, if you go to the Mothman Festival, which I was just at last month, there's 1 million people selling 1 million different types of Mothman shirts. So just like you said, there's all sorts of interpretations. And one of the reasons they could do that is because no one really owns the copyright to him. But you can copyright your shirt or your statue in this case.
Yeah.
So what you did. But yeah, the guy that sculpted that, if you ever visit Point Pleasant and go inside the flood walls, there are more of his work where he sculpted Chief Cornstalk, which is that's a legend that is around Point Pleasant. He was a Native American chief that they'd made a deal with him, and then they screwed him, you know. And so he's supposed to
It's like literally every deal we've ever made.
Well, this was a real old school. They killed him. They really hosed him, and so he vowed vengeance on the whole city of Point Pleasant. Point Pleasant was born under a bad sign. You know, they can't catch a break. But there's some really awesome statues that he did out there. He's quite the artist back, you know. And that's no easy feat. Go make us a giant stainless steel Mothman to put in the town square.
But again, we had there was a gathering. There's a lot of people that we hung out for a few days in West Virginia. It was some long days. And if you'd have said, "Hey, we're putting on a private tour tomorrow morning to get in the car, drive a half hour, and go see a statue of Chief Cornstalk," I would have passed. I'm not going to that. But you tell me that there's been this monster sighting, and not only, the great thing about the Mothman story is first, like, there's not very many monsters. Like, and people had stories about Bigfoot. Most people that have seen Bigfoot far away have a different story than people that saw Bigfoot up close. Most people that see Bigfoot up close, they don't go, he was all right dude. Like, he just came and he brought me a pie and he walked. Like, that's not me. People go, it was terrifying, and it growled and they ran away, But the Mothman thing, it is the whole twist of that last sighting when he was seen flying over this bridge moments before or during this bridge collapsed and people died, is that there's this 50-50 split. Half the people think that he caused this bridge to crumble and people to this is a real story, real life, people died. But the other half think that he was there to warn people, like he was this omen that came and was like, he speaks Mothman, whatever. So it's not like he could tell people, but he was like, get off the bridge. And so, it's not, that's kind of an interesting twist on the Mothman story to me, is that, it's not, it just depends on your take. But was he there to be a bad monster, or was he someone who came and really tried to warn people?
Well, the flip side
I think that all cryptoids are benevolent.
You think?
I think that they all have the best of intentions.
You've never seen the corpse of a goat after a chupacabra got a hold of it.
Well, listen, that's a goat. I don't think chupacabra's got to eat. He eats in a messy way.
Do you remember when you confused Chupacabra with Krampus over and over?
I'm still not exactly clear on the difference. To be
I thought you were going to go into it. But the funny thing about the Mothman, and this kind of plays into what Boat said in reverse, the first sighting of the Mothman was menacing a bunch of teenagers in a car that were making out and flying beside the car and freaking them out. So maybe he's just a jerk.
That's Mothman having some fun.
But again, maybe like one of their tires was low. And he was just trying to let them know.
Maybe he was trying to prevent an unwanted pregnancy.
Oh, that's. I didn't see that one coming. You know, along the lines, we don't really talked much about cryptozoology on here, and you know, I know all about what's going on in West Virginia, but I don't know what's the story out in your neck of the woods, Flack, in Oklahoma. Are there any cryptoids out there running amok?
Listen, Oklahoma for years is one of the hot spots for Bigfoot sightings. Bigfoot is alive and well in Oklahoma and southeastern Oklahoma. We have I think it's the I'm gonna mess it up, but there's a couple of different mountain ranges down there, and every year, in fact, they have a Bigfoot festival in Oklahoma, and several of those Bigfoot, like the reality television shows, come to Oklahoma. So, I mean, that's really our number one thing here would be Bigfoot. We don't, you know, most of our lakes are small. Like, you're not going to hide Loch Ness Monster in a lake that's only 4 foot deep. It's just not.
Are there a lot of woods out there? Because when I think of Oklahoma, I've always heard it was pretty flat and fairly. I mean, is it real woody out in parts of Oklahoma?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I had no idea. So I'm going to ask you this, Bo, because you spent some time in Thailand, you know, and that's an angle you don't hear much of. Do they have this sort of stuff out that way? I mean, you've been in a lot of countries, but you spent a good while in Thailand. Do they have equivalents of the Bigfoot or the Braxton County Monster, anything like that over there?
Oh yeah. I think the difference is that a much larger percentage of the population believes that they're real.
Really?
Yeah, and it's less about the like cryptoid type stuff. Is it cryptid or cryptoid?
You got me. I think you can use both.
Yeah, I think it's
most
both,
of the time.
yeah.
I just kind of slur them together and hope nobody notices. But you know, like the whole paranormal thing.
Yeah.
I mean, people like Eep's mom. She always talks about how like when she was a girl, she'd like go out into the jungle, and this is like when the jungle was the jungle, and there's no electricity and there's no lights, and she went out to the jungle to use the restroom at night, and she saw lights in the jungle, and there were no lights, there was no electricity. And you know, and there's all of these. Thailand is a you know, they're mostly Buddhist, but it is a Buddhism that is crossed with a sort of animism and a sort of paganism that envelops this whole like cadre of ghosts and various deities and spirits and things, and there's this whole cosmic interplay that's always at work all the time. So the paranormal is big in Thailand, but they wouldn't call it paranormal, they just call it like normal.
I was going to say there's a lot of like big ghost, you know, I mean, it's just part of the culture, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Wasn't there some kind of gimmick out there, but I think you could talk about this. I don't know if it's religious, where they have little models of houses or whatnot.
Yeah. In fact,
I'm
glad I'm glad you brought that up, because Eep's parents just constructed a new spirit house outside their abode. One of the things about Thai people is that they have a custom, you know, what we would call superstition or myth. You know, it's all how you look at it, but they have a custom where they will build a small like a miniature house, like a doll house, outside of their house. And the doll house is they call it a spirit house, and they will place like small dishes of sweet liquid and fruit and things like that inside the spirit house. And the idea is that when the evil spirits come, they enter into the spirit house and they gorge themselves on the fine food and drink there, and they leave you alone. And so for years and years and years, Eve's parents have had this kind of rundown spirit house that's sort of on its last legs. And one of the things that we did for them is we helped them out, and they got a new spirit house that's top shelf. It really looks great. Do you have an ability? Actually, I guess I can share my screen, right?
Yeah, you sure can.
What size? I want to know what size the spirit house.
Well, we're going to see it right now, so get ready.
Make sure I can let you share things, Boat. Hold on 1 second here.
Oh yeah, you gotta enable.
Hang loose for a second here. I'll try to figure it out. Let me ask you a question while we're on the subject, Boat. Are these things something you can go out and just buy?
Yes. There are spirit house emporiums that you can go to, and it's sort of like buying a prefabricated home, where you select your model, and then you select all of the sort of accoutrement that go with it. And so you can fully outfit it with the colors that you desire, the fittings, what you want on the interior of the spirit house, the statues that you want outside of it, and then also a big thing is the platform that it sits on. All right, looks like I can share now. So I'll show you some things here. So this is Eep's dad here on the right, and this is the spirit house installer. And you can see that this is Eep's house, her parents' house in the background here. Kind of interesting that, you know, they have no running water. They have no pipes, and so they cart water in on these big plastic cubes. And that's what they use for their water supply. But as you can see here, we've got some more pictures. There's Eep's dad. A big thing is the sort of ceremonial nailing in of the wooden dowels of the foundation. All of this stuff has spiritual significance. A big thing is sort of like in Hawaii, how they give everything a lei. It's sort of the garlands of flowers here. And then you can see there are actually some little figurines that they've placed inside. And I wish that I knew enough to be able to tell you about what all this stuff is, but I don't. Sometime we'll have to have Eep on the show.
Wow,
and then
like a great meal.
To kind of top things off, they have this ceremonial meal where, as you can see, they've got some pig heads, they've got some pig things, a bunch of joss sticks. So they, you know, when they burn incense in Thailand, it's not like here where you light a stick of incense and you put it on the burner. You grab a whole handful and you light them all at once, and it's like this huge, powerful smell. And as you can see, what you've got to do is you have your incense here, and then they place the fresh flowers all, you know, on the sides. I guess there are some side platforms here, and so that's there we go. There's a good shot of everything.
Holy
how it
smokes.
looks.
And that stays out full time, right?
That stays out full time.
Now,
that's right.
What is the, okay, now, and this may be a little inside baseball, but maybe you could answer it. That's incredibly elaborate, much more elaborate than I would have anticipated, because we haven't spoken about this before. How much of this is actual factual belief in this thing's ability to ward off spirits, and how much of this is just straight up lawn decoration that is just like something that's common to the area? I mean, what's the belief strength in this thing?
Well, I think it depends on the person. I'm sure that there are people and there are business, because in Thailand too, you know, in even in Bangkok, like outside of major businesses, you'll have a spirit house. And so, like, you know, some of it borders on the superstitious. I think especially in terms of businesses where you have, like, you know, if you have a really nice spirit house, maybe the evil spirits come in, maybe you make more profit. But I know that in the case of Eep's parents, this is like a major tenet of their belief system. Like, this is like, for real, they believe this.
Now, how big was their previous one?
Their previous one was the size of, see that the structure on the right there,
right? The small.
It was about that
house.
size, but it was in bad shape.
I see. That is remarkable. I mean, I've got to say, I never would have guessed that it was something that elaborate.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and this is something that they've wanted for a really long time. Eep said that she talked to them for an hour and a half as they were putting this up, and they have never been happier.
Do you know, what would something like that cost? Is there any idea what it would cost? That seems super pricey.
I really wish that I would have asked Eep, because we kind of paid for it. So
have you guys ever thought about putting one of those up at your place?
Well, you know, Eep is actually a convert to Catholicism, so she has.
Yeah, but just for fun, you could do.
Oh, well, you know, it's to me, I think that's sort of disrespectful, because it's taking what people take seriously and using it as sort of a prop.
Yeah, I suppose. It's just neat. I mean,
it really speaks to the seriousness, though. I mean, their devotion to it. When you just said they don't have running water,
right? I mean,
yet they've spent all this time doing.
Look at their house. You can see their house in the background here. You know, their house, they don't live in a palatial mansion. Let's just put it that way. And but they, you know, they really wanted to have, this is just, you know, an outward sign of their sort of devotion and their spirituality.
You know, this, and I'm not making light of this at all. Don't take this way. But we had a problem earlier this summer with lizards coming into our yard, and I said, I'm going to build a little house for lizards. And I went to a garage sale and I spent $3 on a birdhouse, and I spray painted it and I threw it up against my fence, and I could see lizards. And that's what I was willing to do. So I mean, again, just the devotion. I mean, look at all the detail on that stuff. That's
Yeah.
And is this more is it like to, what's the right word? Like to appease, like to draw in good spirits, or is this to keep away bad spirits?
It's a multi-function thing. You know, it's sort of like going into a beautiful church. It's like, does the church need to be beautiful to please God if you believe in God? Well, maybe, but it also sort of directs your attention to the hereafter. And it makes you think that if you believe in a life hereafter, you know, the beauty that you see in this church is sort of reflected in that. And I think that it's sort of the same thing with them where, you know, because they're going to see this thing, obviously, all the time. It's right there in their side yard. So, you know, it will constantly remind them of their faith. And, you know, it serves the purpose of, you know, for them of warding off the evil spirits, but it's also sort of an outward sign of the faith that they have. And so people can kind of, when people come over, they see that, and it's sort of a reflection of their personality.
I literally thought we were about to see something the size of a Barbie dollhouse.
Yeah, that's exactly. we talked about this years ago. And I never in my wildest dreams envision something like this. I mean,
I mean, this is definitely one of the nicer ones that I've ever seen, for sure.
Would you, Bo, having been over there for a while, would you say that the people in Thailand are? I mean, obviously, you said they're more superstitious, but are they a more devoutly religious folk than you would expect?
Yes, 100%. They're more devout. Like, part of it is because it's sort of easier to be devout.
Yeah.
You know, when you live in a country that's 97% Buddhist, you know, so many of the cultural touchstones are directed towards that. So, you know, like they have a head of state that, you know, presides over all the major Buddhist ceremonies, you know. And they haven't sort of that hasn't sort of been degraded yet to where the secular society has kind of taken what they like from it and put it away. It's sort of like, you know, Christmas here. Christmas, you can celebrate it completely as a secular holiday in the United States, but Christmas in, say, like the Philippines or someplace where it's a really sort of a more devout country works differently. Or even in a lot of places in Europe, there's just a lot of things that are specifically more Christian about the holiday. So in Thailand, because Buddhism is sort of a faith that you can kind of, there's many different levels of being a Buddhist, and you can kind of be a casual Buddhist and people are still okay with that. And so it's sort of a thing where people will participate in all of the different festivals and things like that. And they're ostensibly Buddhist festivals with Buddhist principles, but you never know what people really believe in their hearts.
That's good stuff, Boat. Excellent stuff there. I'm so glad you brought those pictures up. I think it's really, just as an outsider, I think it's a real interesting setup there.
And I'm so glad that just happened to happen literally today, so I can share it.
See, look, that's serendipity right there. It's timing is everything. Now, this is just for fun here, and I'll offer this up to the folks that are joining us in chat. Have either one of you two fellows seen or thought you saw? I know we recall your UFO story from a show or two back, Flack, where you thought you were seeing a UFO as a kid. But have you guys ever caught sight of something that made you, you know, especially if it's a crypto, you know, or heard something in a boat? You were out in, I mean, straight up jungle out there. So I thought maybe you might have seen something that just was really weird. But have either one of you ever come across anything that you would describe as that would fall into the realm of the crypto?
No. I mean, I really haven't. I wish I had. I'd love to see something I couldn't explain. I told you about what happened in Miss Hall's class that one time.
What happened? Go again.
Like I was chewing on the end of this pen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like I felt it like explode all over me, and like the lid of the cap of the pen came off. I was chewing on the end where the ink comes out.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was a strange day.
Yeah.
And anyway, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this ink's getting all over me. Like, what am I going to do? And then all of a sudden I blinked and it didn't happen.
You're
and
like
the lid of the pen was back. It was like I was able to rewind time in that one instance.
You're like Elizabeth Montgomery on Bewitched. You used to give it one of those, and then
that's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Remind me, by the way, for Christmas to just straight up buy you a chew toy, because you between pins
I
and
do.
joysticks.
I chew on things without. Yeah, you don't want to see the end of my sippy cup.
You are dead on, sir. What about you, Flack?
I've had 2 different experiences with ghosts that were in other people's homes, and things happened. One, I was warned beforehand that something might happen, and then it did. And of course, when you're that age, a young, early teenager, you go, all right, this was set up somehow, but in retrospect, I don't think that it was. And then in another instance, well, I'll tell you that real quick. I was spending the night at a friend's house, and this was like 6th grade, and we were the only 2 there. And he said, by the way, if you hear anything like in the house move or pop or something open, he said, that happens here all the time. This house just seems to be haunted, and we're just kind of used to it. And then, you kind of giggle and you go, right, whatever, And then later, the 2 of us were in his living room playing video games, and we heard this noise from the kitchen. And we went in there, and a kitchen drawer or a cabinet door had opened. And you remember that people used to store, some people still do, I guess, store your dried uncooked spaghetti like in a tall, like a metal tumbler thing or something.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that had fallen out of the cabinet, and the dry spaghetti was all over the kitchen. And the thing that strikes me about it now, looking back on that, was it like if you're a kid and you're trying to sell that, you'd be like, oh my gosh, a ghost must have did that. I mean, 6th graders are not good actors, but the fact that he was like, yeah, told you that kind of stuff happens, and he cleaned it up. And so it was almost like it was a normal thing for him. And that's kind of what strikes me about that. But there was another time where I was at a friend's house, and we were sitting in the living room, and his whole family was in the living room, and 2 different times I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and I looked down there in the hallway and thought I saw something move, and then I looked, and it was just a hallway with closed doors, and I went back, and like it was just twice. And then finally someone said, oh, I think he saw little Timmy or whatever, and then they all kind of laughed, and I was like, oh, is that your dog or something? And they're like, nope, there's a seems to be a spirit here, and we've all seen it. It's always in that hallway, and it's always in the same spot. And but anyway, it was just that I mean, I'm definitely, the old I think it was an Eddie Murphy skit where he talked about how he could never own the house from Amityville Horror, where he's purchased this house and he's moving his stuff in, and he walks in on the house and he says, look at this beautiful house. And then they hear a voice that says, get out. And he says, too bad I can't stay. And they turn around and they go. Yeah. And I mean, that's me. I go into a place and they're like, hey, by the way, this is a nice house. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 dens. It's got a great view. And by the way, there's a ghost named Timmy that lives in the hallway. Too bad I can't stay. I'm out of here. I'm not doing that unless, although I've just learned about spirit houses. And so maybe
there you go. You just erect a structure in front of your house.
I think if you're looking for a business model, you are the guy at the front of the neighborhood where you build the spirit condo.
Right.
like for exactly. 20 people, then you just rent out.
For a low monthly fee, I can take care of your spirits. They can lie with me.
Everybody gets their own little address. So, but yeah, that's the thing that really strikes me about both of those incidents, which are 100% true, was that the people that lived there were like, yep, we're just used to it.
Yeah.
And that was just a strange reaction from someone else.
That is. I've known a few people that have a similar setup where they think their house is haunted. They sort of give you the clue. And it is always creepy, because if someone's going to tell a guest that, I don't know, I guess they could try to get themselves over with that, but I mean, that wouldn't do it for me. I would assume there's actually something going on there. We have a house up in Clay County, West Virginia. It's right on the river. And it's a tiny house up there. We've just put it up in the last year. And I've spent the first couple of nights there about 2 months ago. And it's right on the river. And there's not really anyone living, or there are places around it, but there's no one living there. And my kid and me spent our first night there, and they had a thunderstorm. And this is right in the valley out there. And no, I didn't see a ghost or a sea serpent or anything. But as I laid there, looking into the woods and watching the lightning crack and hearing the noise and stuff, I thought to myself, this is how 1,000 or 1,000,000 ghost stories were made. And this is also why people decided to drop to their knees. There's something chilling about an isolated area where you don't have the normal comforts. This is one thing I wondered, Boat, because you'd mentioned a couple times that they'd been out in the jungle out there in Thailand. I want to touch this one more time before we move on here, just for my own edification, Boat. That when you talk about a jungle in Thailand, like what are we talking? Like a jungle, like a movie jungle? What does that entail? I mean, are we talking wild beasts? The whole
Have
9
you
yards?
Have you ever seen anything set in the Vietnam War?
I have, yeah.
Okay, that's the jungle.
Really? So real
Yeah.
thick, deep.
Yeah, real thick. Now, of course, like just like anything, like the jungle when Eep's parents were little was much more vast. Like now, like even in like Eep's hometown, which is a village, there's still like you it's not as if their house is surrounded by jungle on all sides.
Right.
But I mean, it's sort of like if you walk sort of like to where Level Lord stayed from your house, like you can be in the heart of like the deepest, darkest jungle you can imagine.
Very good, very good, very creepy stuff. And I found all that quite fascinating. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got a submission from one of our good friends. We're gonna play that and discuss that particular topic, which I believe involves the old friend, the Ouija board. We'll be back in 2 shakes.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside. You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back, everyone, and we are going to go right into it here with our submitted story. This comes to us from our good friend Mitsuyama, who just popped out, but he sent in some audio, so I'm going to play this right now. Let's see what Mitz has to say, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi everyone, it's Stephen, aka Mitsuyama on Discord, and I've got a short story involving a Ouija board. This didn't involve me directly, but it's a story that my mum told me, and I thought it might be a good fit for this show. These events take place shortly before I was born in the early 70s. I don't know if it was the same in other parts of the world, but at that time in the UK it was quite common to see Ouija boards for sale alongside board games such as Monopoly and Scrabble. This always seemed a little crazy to me. Anyway, My mum and dad are spending the evening with friends, let's call them Margot and Jerry, and they start fooling around with the Ouija board. They start asking questions, the pointer starts to move in response, and they all start accusing each other of moving it. You know the kind of thing. So, Jerry asks the question, how many children will I have? And the pointer moves to the number 4. At that point, Margot and Jerry had already had 2 children, and Margot responds, "Ha! No chance, 2 is enough for me." However, a few years later, Margot and Jerry get a divorce, Jerry remarries, and has 2 more children with his second wife. This has always stuck with my mum, and she was convinced that they were communicating with somebody, or something, that knew the future. Personally, I just think it's all a coincidence. But what do you guys think? Ouija boards, a simple parlour trick, or an instrument that allows conversations from the dark side?
Very good stuff. He also brought up an interesting point in there where he thought it was strange that the Ouija board is sold alongside games like Monopoly and Hungry Hungry Hippos at your local store, which is always sort of odd. And I'm assuming it's still that way because in the day I see Ouija boards all the time, but come to think of it, I really haven't looked for one recently. Have you guys seen the Ouija out in the stores recently, out in the wild?
Still there.
Are they?
Still there. Yep, saw it at Target.
Did either one of you ever think did it ever strike you as odd in the same way it struck Mitsuyama that these things were out there amongst the children's toys?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's nothing really childlike about a Ouija board. I mean, there's nothing sinister about it either, but it's definitely not like Hungry Hungry Hippos where it's bright and colorful and cartoonish, you know.
It strikes me as strange, and the reason it never struck me as that. It did, but it was something that you just took for granted. But in today's weird, very sensitive society, it does strike me as strange that it's still out there in the same places it always has been. And if you look at the litany of the Ouija board in film and on TV, it's never portrayed like, oh look, the Ouija saved the day. I'm like, good job, Ouija. Thank you for starting that fire or predicting I'm going to win the lottery. It never does that. It's always
Super Friends are never using one.
Yeah, it's always summoning demons as the devil or poltergeists or used to talk to the dead and the dead screw you. You know, so it's strange to me that this thing's still around. I mean, no one's using it for good. Is this something, did you used to play with these things back in the day, Flack, the old Ouija?
You know, my buddy Jeff had a Ouija board. We played with it at his house. If you know Jeff, you know that that thing is going to move, and I'm not moving it. So I know he's moving it, you know.
Yeah.
But I ended up borrowing it from him, and I never got it to do anything. But I will say this: I ended up loaning that Ouija board years later to someone else, and they loaned it to someone else, and eventually it landed up in the hands of people who went on to claim that they had all kinds of conversations with spirits in other realms, and that they had long conversations. And it wasn't like it randomly moved one time. I mean, this is a months and months thing. And I always thought, we got that at Walmart. Like, it wasn't like an ancient coven of witches crafted this out of haunted bone or something. I mean, it was made by Parker Brothers.
Right.
But I will say this. I don't, if there is anything to Ouija boards, I don't think it's in the Ouija board itself. I think the Ouija board is a tool or a vessel or something. It's kind of like saying, when someone, when people would used to, like psychologists or whatever, people would hypnotize people, they would use a flashlight, and they would move it back and forth. Well, I don't think flashlights, I don't think you could go around with flashlights hypnotizing random people. I just think that's part of a process, and that's something that could be used in that situation, So do I think that, every Ouija board comes off the shelf with its own built-in spirit, you know, kind of like little computer people, like you buy it and like, here's your guy, his name's Harry. He died in the 1700s.
That would be so cool.
It just comes, everyone comes with a little 8x10. Like, here's
That
your
would
guy.
actually be a pretty cool marketing
It's
aspect.
like the Cabbage
you know?
Patch version of
Right,
Ouija
exactly,
board.
exactly.
You get your own guy. You know what? I just recently saw a meme and it said how disappointing it is that ghosts in the afterlife, they always appear in the clothes that they were wearing when they died. And I thought, boy, I mean, that really, like, you don't want to die at a Halloween party or something, like,
Right.
you just appear and you're like, oh, you're the sexy nurse, and you're like, I know, I wore it one time and I got hit by a car or something, you know.
I never thought of that.
But so I don't think that there's something magical or mystical in the device itself, you know, and whether or not people can really communicate with spirits and things like that, I don't know the answer. I know that I haven't done it, but I think I used to think, hey, this is all fake, and now I think if there's something happening, I don't think it's something that comes with that board, something that comes with that. I think that's something that maybe helps those people focus or do something, you know, to facilitate that communication.
You know, the thing I like about the Ouija is, because I used to live with a guy named Big Head, and Big Head was a great guy, but Big had he was a superstitious man, and he had this rule when it came, it counted for Ouija boards and tarot cards, and he always told me, he goes, listen, these don't count, and they don't work right unless you make your own. You know, you have to be homemade, and so he made his own Ouija board. I don't know if he ever made his own tarot, but he made his own Ouija board. And he had this thing, it was made of wood, and he burned all the numbers and letters in, you know. And I've heard of other people with a similar view on these things. And this is one of the things I like about like witchcraft and the occult in general. There are these weird rules, and some people adhere to the rules, some people have never heard of the rules, but they're there. And you can and the rules can be whatever you want, you know, and they can say, listen, you're not going to contact anybody on that Parker Brothers. I've had people laugh at me when they saw my Ouija board, like, my Ouija board's no good. You've got to have, it's almost like someone that has an iPhone and they see me with a flip phone. That's the way I feel. It's a Ouija equivalent of that, you know, but it always amused me. But in terms of the Ouija itself, you know, I've been involved in a lot of Ouija sessions over the years. You know, and if you think about it as in its most basic elements with the flechette and the board, and 2 people or 3 people moving it around, and its most basic elements, it is a kid's game. I mean, really, if you look at it without, let's take the spirits out of it, it's just some goof moving the air around to try to freak out another goof, right? If you take everything out of it, you could put that beside Monopoly, but when you add the spiritual side of it, then you absolutely change the dynamics on it. Speaking of changing the dynamics, we have a visitor to the room here. I'm going to set you up here. And what a guy this is. It's our good buddy, the Brent. What's going on, the Brent?
How's it going? How's it going?
Hey, what's going on? Now, you mentioned to me on ARG that you might be coming around to give us your creepery. We were just talking about Ouija boards, and we've already talked about a whole slew of things. What do you have on your mind tonight?
I have a story that's actually happened this year.
Okay.
As some of you might know, and for those who don't, I'll catch you up to speed. The Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant happened recently. And in Point Pleasant, they have a Mothman statue.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. It's amazing that you go on.
So the man who made the Mothman statue has since passed on, but his daughter has kind of taken over the estate, taken over the ownership of the statue. Now the town owns the statue, right? The physical object of the statue, but the artistic expression of the statue, the design, that kind of stuff, it's all copyrighted to her. So she was frantically looking for someone to do some marketing for the festival that was coming up. and found her way to our doorstep from a suggestion of a suggestion, that sort of thing, because she lives many miles away from us. So she came in and she said, listen, I want to do some stuff. And we made some postcards and we did some banners for her, that kind of thing. But one thing that she wanted to do was highlight her father. And because a lot of people, I mean, maybe they don't care, but a lot of people don't know who made the Mothman statue. And she said, I want you to help me put something together that kind of honors his memory. I'm like, that's awesome. I said, listen, this is what I'm going to need from you. I need things that the general public has never seen before. Because we have to make this really something special. We have to give the people something that they have never seen. That's how you get someone's attention. And she said, listen, I can do that. She says, I have a photo album that survived the fire. One of the only things that survived the fire, and I'm going to get to the fire here in a second. I will bring that in and let you look at it, look through it, and see if there's anything you can find that you think might be worthy. I said, awesome, let's do it. The fire burned down the entire home and a large portion of the property of where the Mothman was actually constructed. And it was a home, and then off the home was a garage, and the garage was the workshop for where the Mothman statue was made. And all that is burned down. It is all gone. And in that, they lost a lot of memorabilia because the whole home burned down as well. But this one photo album, and I mean, it is a photo album that holds 4 by 6 inch pictures. It's a small thing. You can palm the whole thing in your hand. It's not one of those big fancy photo albums. And when she brought it to me, it was in just the worst condition you've ever seen. And you can tell that something dramatic had happened to this photo album. But the pictures inside were in fairly good condition. And you had a lot of family pictures. The thing was probably only 32 front and back pages. So 64 pictures in total, and it was only about half full. So we're looking at about 32 pictures. And he had pictures of him building the Mothman. I said, these are perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. And she was like, oh, I don't want to really use those because I'm thinking about maybe making a book about them. So let's hold those back. Let's see if you can find something else. I said, okay, that's fine. Can I keep these? Can I keep these with me, scan in what I think I'm going to use, and then I can get it back to you? She says, you know what? Normally I wouldn't do that, but I trust you. Here you go. I'm going to leave these with you.
Big mistake.
And so it gave me time to really flip through this album. And what I had found is a lot of the pictures of him with the Mothman statue were tucked in behind other pictures. And some of the pictures I found were injuries he sustained while he was making this Mothman statue, because the Mothman statue is huge. It's man size, right? And it's full metal basically. And he had injured himself in several different ways. The most predominant was a injury to his foot. And the second injury that was probably the second most predominant was in one picture, and it was not only behind one picture but in between another picture. So it was very deep layered in there, and he had cut his hand from about the pointer finger down to the thumb, and he had taken a picture where he cut himself. And I was like, oh man, that's part of doing arts, parts of doing, the craft that you love. You're going to get hurt. And I was working on this on a Saturday night. It was about 11 o'clock at night because we had to get it ready for the festival. So I had to get stuff prepared for her to proof for us to produce. And I remember seeing that picture. I was like, man, that's brutal. And I put all that obviously wasn't a picture I was going to use. So I put all the pictures aside and started working on what I was going to do. And through my work, my efforts on getting these pictures scanned, I sliced my hand in the exact same location that he had cut himself in that picture. And I thought, man, what is the chances of that? I work at a print shop. I never get injuries like that. And I was looking at my hand, I was looking at that picture, and the cuts were almost identical. So I was like, man, that's crazy. So I cleaned myself up and I put some bandages on it. And I started going back and I finished it up and I went home for the day. At this point, it's about 1 a.m. And I walk in and I take it off my jacket and my shoes and everything. And wouldn't you know it, the exact same foot that he had a busted toe in the pictures that I saw, at some point during that night, I had split the end of that toe open. It was like he was transferring those injuries from those pictures that he sustained and just transferring them one to me. Because what are the chances that I'm going to sustain 2 injuries in the exact same places on these photos that haven't been seen for probably, 20 years in the exact same night within an hour and a half, 2 hours of each other? I thought that was kind of crazy, and I wanted to share that.
I'm just glad he didn't have a picture of him in his coffin.
Picture of him cutting off his arm with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
That is a strange one, Branny. What do you think? You happen to you?
It's odd. I get kind of nostalgic. I don't even know if nostalgic is the right word. Almost spiritual when I look at old photos, especially old family photos of folks that I'm not related to, folks that I have nothing to do with. And I get in my head and I think, when they took this, I wonder what they were thinking, or I wonder what they were feeling. I'm weird like that, I guess. Mm-hmm. And flipping through these pictures, there's so many unique pictures that I feel completely honored to have seen and got to experience of him working with the statue. And he was this rugged guy that did not wear protective equipment. I mean, he would wear, when he did welding, he'd wear a welder's helmet. And that was literally it. He didn't wear gloves. He didn't wear shirts half the time.
Completely nude.
He would normally wear jeans and an open shirt. That is how he did most of his crafting. And just to add just a little past that, just the connection, because this is someone I've never met, never thought of, never even considered until she showed up in the shop. But it turns out that she actually, the man that made the Mothman statue worked with my dad, or Aaron and I's dad, and lived in the neighborhood where we live. What a connection off of just random happenstance. And then I meet his daughter and get to see all these crazy pictures and end up with injuries just like he did from flipping through his photo album. I don't know, man. Is it coincidence? Almost certainly, probably, but it is something that ever since it happened, it made me wonder, it made me question.
We don't talk about this that much, but I don't know the answer to this, so I figured I'd ask. I mean, would you consider yourself someone that puts stock in paranormal or that sort of happening? I mean, are you the kind of person that believes in that sort of thing?
No,
really?
Not at all. I enjoy. It's like screaming on a roller coaster. If I want to put myself in a situation where I want to be scared, or I want to be mystified, or I want to have the emotions that go along with having that kind of belief, I can put myself in the position. But from a talking from beyond type of scenario, I don't put any stock into it. I think there's a far greater chance of aliens being somewhere out in the universe, or possibly aliens that had sowed the beginning seeds of our planet, and then, much like a child in his ant farm, kind of lost interest in it and walked away. Like, I don't believe that, but I can put a lot more that could be a thing, as rather than ghosts and stuff.
So stuff like we've been talking about tonight, the cryptozoological creatures, the stuff like a tarot cards or the Ouija board. None of this stuff are ghosts. You don't really put stock in any of this stuff, then, eh? No. I have too much of a scientific mind, too much of a, there's a more reasonable explanation for it. I think if there were ghosts looking to push into our realm, they would have done it in a far more spectacular factor by now than, making rocking chairs squeak or blowing in the wind type of affair. At least I'd hope so. What would be the most disappointing thing in life? You die, you go to the afterlife, you find out that you can become a ghost, and then it just sucks. Like, you can't do anything. You just get to sit there and, tip something over once every 100 years or something. That'd be terrible. Only you could ruin the afterlife, Brent. Well done. Thank you very much. Let's take all that out of it. It's just why I've got you in here, since you took the time to pop in. I'll ask the other fellas this too. If you go back to when you were a little kid, way back in the day, do you have a favorite Halloween-related memory? Do you remember trick-or-treating, like a favorite costume, any of that sort of thing? 'Tis the season, after all.
Oh, I'll do favorite costume first, because this is one most of the people in the chat room would remember, and probably all of you have seen pictures of. One year, I dressed up as a Miss Pac-Man machine, and that was a
few years ago, though. That's not childhood.
No, my childhood memory's coming. No, that was over a decade ago.
Yeah, it's definitely been over 10 years ago.
Yeah,
well, that's still not that long ago.
For childhood memory, and this happened close to Halloween, but it wasn't on Halloween. I was invited over to a sleepover. I think I might have even told this story on one of the Tales from the Dark Side, but we'll roll with it.
Conversations.
Yes, thank you. Invited to a friend's sleepover party, and there were 4 of us in total. And we all decided to tell spooky, scary stories. And I told a spooky, scary story and related it to the woods that were near this kid's house, and really just juiced up that scare factor, right? That personal grab you scare factor. So much so that one kid, so we finished with the story, and we're all like, oh, that's a bunch of crap. Ha ha ha, oh, it's time, an hour or so passes. Well, it's time to go to bed. One kid got so scared, he threw up. Another kid got so scared that he left the sleepover. He called his mom at like 10:30 at night, because remember, we're like 9 and 10 at this point. Called his mom at 10:30 at night, said, "Mom, I'm too scared. I want to come home." And so at the morning breakfast, there's just 2 of us out of a sleepover of 4, because I had scared the other kids so bad. And on top of that, I had scared myself so bad I couldn't go to sleep. So it was a good story, I suppose. I can't remember it now, but I remember it being such a good story that I screwed up the sleepover. Leave it to me, right?
The other kids may have been being polite to you, and they just didn't like your company, Brent.
Well, let me tell you something. That kid that puked, he did well. He did well. He fooled me.
So what's your childhood story?
That was my childhood story. Is 8 not young enough?
That's not young enough for me. That's not young enough for me. That's good stuff. Just while we're on the subject, I'll ask you the same thing, Boat. Do you remember a favorite costume back when you were a kid?
Yeah, I remember when I was 8, and I mostly remember this because my parents bought a camcorder when I was 8. So this was fall of 1989. I was 8 years old. And my mom sewed me, because this is back in the day when people did stuff like this. She sewed me a Batman costume, including sewing me a bat cowl, like a Batman helmet thing. They put it, and it didn't fit me very well because I think that the pattern was designed for a grown man, at least the cowl. So the cowl kind of was like skewed to the side, but I found that if I kind of looped it over one ear, I could just about see out of it. And I have footage of me at the because apparently like this was like a thing back. There was like an elementary school, maybe this still is a thing, an elementary school costume parade that my mom was out, and I'm strutting out the door as part of this parade with the Batman cowl hanging off my ear, hanging out, and me like not being able to see very well. But I really felt like I was the embodiment of Gotham City's finest.
Through his bat boat. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Very good, but
now, Aaron, if you're including high school, and you might remember this, I'm sure John remembers this. I think he was around at the time.
I have video of this. I already know what you're going to say.
I dressed up as Space Ghost, homemade costume with the whole thing, and danced around. This is when Space Coast to Coast was a big thing.
I do remember this. Yes, I remember that outfit. It was great.
Yeah, in fact, Brent, I need to share that video with you because I have that whole game on tape, including when we did that song.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good stuff.
I'd forgotten about that. Now, Flack has literally devoted like the majority of his life. I've heard. So I feel like I was there as your buddy when you were growing up, Flack, because of you don't know Flack, and I have an idea if I ask you what your favorite costume was. But I mean, there are many to choose from. But when it comes to your experiences, your favorite experience as a young lad trick or treating, and your favorite costume, what do you got?
I will tell you the absolute favorite year that I went trick or treating was the year my dad bought this werewolf mask, and the face was ferocious looking. It had this just the protruding jaw with bloody fangs, and it had this wild hair, and it was white and gray. And so I dressed up. I put on what I was going to be was like, I had this other mask that was like an old man mask. And so I put on like a flannel shirt and overalls and some fake blood. And then I was going to be like a werewolf, but then I couldn't find the werewolf mask. So I put on this old man mask. And I grew up in a neighborhood that was 6 blocks. And there was only one way to get in and out of the neighborhood. So there was not any through traffic. So you were basically safe. I mean, nobody was coming in that shouldn't be in the neighborhood. And I was a little bummed out that I couldn't be the werewolf, but I put on this old man mask, and I did the entire neighborhood. And this was like right at that age where I didn't take a plastic jack-o'-lantern pail or some McDonald's pail. I took a pillowcase, and I mean, I loaded up on candy. I mean, just every house, this is, like it seems like hundreds of houses. I come back, I could barely carry this pillowcase, and I get back home, and my dad's there, and he says, I thought you were going to use the werewolf mask, and it's sitting there. I didn't see it. It was in the living room. And I mean, we had got back, it was like 8:30, and I said, I'm going again. I took off that old man mask. I put on the werewolf mask. I didn't even change costume, just a different mask. And we went back out, and I did the whole thing again. I mean, it's kind of a sad moment, but when I got home, there was this trail of candy behind me because the bag was so heavy that I had dragged it and I'd worn a hole in it. So there was like little pieces of candy that were falling out behind me as I got there, but I mean, that was like there was no year that I trick-or-treated that I got more candy. That was like 6 months of candy, it seems like, or 3 days. But I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of candy. But I'm trying to think of what my favorite costume was, because I just had so many. I went through. I grew up in the age of the Ben Cooper Halloween costumes, and not only Ben Cooper ones, but Ben Cooper Star Wars ones. So I had a Stormtrooper one, I had the Darth Vader, I had Chewbacca. So I went through all the Star Wars ones. One of my favorite Halloween costumes I had as a kid was this devil mask that my mom got. That was the goofiest looking devil mask. It was like a latex mask that was too big for my head and only covered like 2/3 of my head. So like the back, you could see my hair and stuff. And I had like a rubber band that someone had stapled. I mean, this mask had been through it, right? And I had a long sleeve red shirt, and my mom gave me some red tights, and I put on like red soccer shorts, and she made me a cape. And then I got these red devil gloves that were like size 2X for adults. And I was like 10. I mean, you couldn't do anything with them. You were just like, couldn't hold anything. The gloves are falling off. And I love this costume so much. I will post this later in the Discord. There's a picture of me sitting on my bicycle wearing this in whole costume. It is nowhere near Halloween. It's like August, and I'm just out. And I was that kid that would cruise around my neighborhood on a bike in a full devil costume, just riding around, bopping around with oversized devil gloves and a mask I couldn't see out of. And it was just the greatest time. Now I will say my buddy, a lot of you guys know my buddy Jeff. He is Steel Rat. He shows up in a lot of my streams. And Jeff had, number one, the first Halloween party that I ever went to was in 7th grade. It was the first time I ever went to his house, was a Halloween party. And that was like the year that I kind of made the break. Like I first started making the break away from trick-or-treating and going to parties and stuff instead. And his family went all out. They had a hot tub in the back of their house, and they'd put a giant thing of dry ice in the hot tub, so it was smoking and doing all that cool stuff. And I remember, this is 7th graders, and his mom put on, I think it was Friday the 13th part 2. And I just remember like being in the living room and just, seeing naked girls and people getting their heads cut off. And I was like, yeah. And I do remember them asking, like, are you sure this is cool with your parents? And I was like, yeah, probably. Yeah, my parents won't mind that I'm watching this. But just doing that whole thing. And when I was right around the time, it was the year that the Blair Witch came out.
Oh, yes.
Jeff had a Halloween party at his house and bought rolls of butcher paper. And we covered like his living room and kitchen and dining room, every wall with white butcher paper. And then we got red paint and put bloody handprints on his walls of his house and hung like the little stick people from the Blair. I mean, we did the whole house, and he had done all these decorations. And I will tell you, this is my least favorite Halloween costume of all time, and it was from the same era. And I'm not a believer in funny costumes, and I'm not a believer in topical costumes. Like I'm a traditionalist. I mean, except for Star Wars, but I mean, I think you either got to be something scary, something haunted. Of course, as a little kid, there was the Star Wars exception, but that's what I want to see for Halloween. And that was the year, and I think my wife might have put me up to it, but that was the year I dressed up as Monica Lewinsky.
Oh God.
And let me tell you,
he broke every rule. He broke every rule.
it took about 3 stiff drinks just to walk out of the house. And there were more stiff drinks involved as we sat around Jeff's house covered in bloody handprints. And people are like, are you just like a ugly dude in a dress? You know,
Bingo.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I was. And I had a
That's
name
also
tag,
something I am.
yeah, that said Monica on it. And it was a very uncomfortable evening. So I don't believe there are any photos of that night. I sure
You
hope
know,
there are.
Aaron, speaking of photos, if
Yes,
you'll
sir.
allow me,
Please.
Brent's better half has posted some classic Halloween shots. We can see here.
While you're pulling those up, hey, just want to welcome the Raiders in. You're just in time to catch the last half hour of Conversations to the Dark Side. We're talking all things Halloween. And if you have anything to add, feel free to drop me a note or add something in the chat. We'd love to hear from you.
So
Yes.
this is probably, I would say 2011 or so, because Eep is not yet here. I think this was probably Halloween of 2010 or 2011. And of course, Aaron, I believe you still have that outfit, right?
You know, they took my lab coat back to they were all rentals, and they took it. I don't have that anymore. I miss that.
Actually, I guess this has got to be after, because if you were already working for the state of Kentucky with the lab coat, this is later than I thought it was.
Brent, what are you in this? Are you a skee ball machine?
Skee ball machine. I'm a functional skee ball machine.
Well, that's your opinion.
Oh yeah, it's got to be much
You look
later,
like
because look how old Christian looks.
You look like
and,
a real cheesy, like a real ugly cigarette girl. You know, that's what you're with a big selection.
And here is the Miss Pac-Man guy.
Oh yes, yeah. There's our buddy the Chud. Is the guy in the big beaver outfit there?
Who's the guy in the mummy costume?
That's me.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
that's the most expensive costume I've ever bought. And I thought, man, I'm gonna cheap out this year on costumes. And I went up to the lady at the, what's that place you bought, Joann's Fabrics? I said, listen, how much gauze do you think it'd take to cover my whole body? And she's like, a lot. I was like, well, how much does that cost? She goes, a lot. I'm like, well, give it to me. And she gave it to me, all right.
And then here's one more. This is the
This is also a great costume for me. This is my Rocky Horror Picture Show Eddie.
That was a great costume. We went to the Rocky Horror, and Britt placed quite highly in the costume contest.
I got pulled up on stage to do the performance.
Yeah, it was very. They did not like my Hulk Hogan outfit. I got booed off the stage.
wrestling and Rocky Horror fans don't get along.
Yeah, they didn't like that too much.
And finally, extra bonus. Here's a little bit of Brent dressed up as Space Ghost performing with the 1995 Hurricane High School Redskin Marching Band.
Look at this.
I'm looking. Oh, is that you up front, Brent?
He's the one that's dressed like Space Ghost.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's no cape. I don't see the cape. Could you get your belt any higher there, Brent?
That was part of the costume.
It's like a Space Ghost had retired. That's what he would look like. Good grief. I love it. Good stuff.
And at that particular Halloween, I dressed up as Tim the Enchanter from
oh, nice. Monty Python, yeah.
Which I did by gluing several pieces of cotton swabs to my cheeks. It was very convincing.
Better than facial tattoos.
Yeah, well, yes.
What was
we all
spastic
learned
dance
things
they
today.
did at the end, Boat? You want to explain what that was?
What are we talking about?
The dance that the band was doing there at the end of that.
Oh, listen,
What the heck
that's just
was
the
that?
band dance.
That's what that was?
Yeah, let me put that back up
to be
there.
Insane people.
Listen, if you're not, you're just dancing around. That's just what happens.
Listen, you're showing me memories I don't want to relive right here. Those were bad times. At least it wasn't muddy when you were out there. You know,
hey, minus Aaron, that huge patch of mud that was everywhere.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Yes,
before
sir.
we move on, can I share my screen for a second here?
Absolutely.
All
Share
right,
on, brother.
I may be fumbling through this here. Here we go. Let's go here. All right. Let me know if you can you see that?
No, we don't see nothing.
Oh, wait, hang on. There we go.
There we go.
That Batman costume much better.
That's
of course, mine was the Tim Burton Batman.
my different eras. We're from different eras.
Yeah.
My mom was also a big fan of the homemade costume. In fact, a lot of years when I got the Ben Cooper, she would just make the costume. I would get to keep the mask. But this was my Batman. This is I'm going to say age 4. This is before we moved. This is like 1977. And I don't remember wearing this out of the house too much. This is my first
Oh my God.
costume ever. I'm the ghost on the left.
That would wear that today. That would
I thought you were a bunny.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, let me tell you, nothing. This is the thing. If people want to go between like, what's the difference between the 70s and now?
Yeah. There it
70s,
is.
someone would take a 3-year-old and tie a rope around their neck and send them out of the house and say, "Don't choke. Good luck."
Also, a rope around your neck and a white hood mask.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a bad combination for today's society.
It was not a good combo.
That is
This is-
classic.
The famous Chewbacca outfit again with a jumpsuit that my mother made, and that is my sister there as Scrappy Doo. Apparently, they made a Scrappy Doo for girls because they actually, if you can see, her mask is pink. Like,
Yeah.
they made a
Maybe she was
pink one.
Scrappy D. or
I was
Scrappy
thinking
D.
pig.
That's what I
Honestly.
thought, too. That's what I thought.
But 2 other ones here. This is again,
Jeez.
and this is all these great Ben Cooper costumes. That's my buddy Andy on the left there. He is Fred Flintstone. His brother down there, I don't remember. One of them was Popeye, and one was I don't even know. But yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna
me.
guess the one with the plastic smock that has Popeye's picture on it. That was probably Popeye.
He's the Popeye.
Good
I
eye,
just don't
Brett.
remember what the other one was.
Bugs
he's
Bunny.
Bugs Bunny. I see it there. And then, of course, there's my sister and I. We should be so lucky. She got the green face paint for the witch. I got the stormtrooper, and also I remember very distinctly that laser rifle the day before was red and blue, and my dad said, "I'll fix that," and painted it black, and it never worked again.
No.
But it was a great accessory. And finally, I mean, if this doesn't tell you Halloween, I mean, this is just me in the summer hanging out. This is what I would do. Just put on this mask that I don't even remember if the teeth were like that or if I blacked them out. There's no telling. And there's the oversized gloves.
Looks like you're on a leotard there.
Yeah.
If you ever seen that Santa Claus film, the Mexican Santa Claus, where he fights Pitch the devil and Pitch gleefully prances around, that's exactly what you look like right there.
I mean, I'm one mass shy of being a luchador right there. So,
I love that. That's good
anyway,
stuff.
there's old Halloween costumes from me.
You know, I looked at the chat. I mentioned earlier, I asked the chat if they wanted to chime in with some of the stuff that they used to wear. And Buck Owens mentions Evel Knievel, outstanding. I saw a bunch of Evel Knievels back in the day. His suit always had the mask that had his, he used to wear that Stars and Bars jumpsuit. And then, of course, on the smock, they would put the motorcycle jumping over stuff because that's what they used to do. Draws mentions the Ben Cooper costumes, Casper the Friendly Ghost. He also had the old hobo. I, by the way, am the same as you, Flack. I also had a hobo outfit that I wore the last year I went out. So that's definitely one that I can relate to there. So yeah, it's funny. There's a shared. It's funny if you grew up in the 70s in particular, there is a shared, like, your costumes were limited for the longest time. I remember the first time I saw those full costumes. And it's something you never saw. Like, I mean, the full mask, the big rubber one, I'd never seen those before. And when they came out, I couldn't believe how incredible they were, So that was great when they came out. But for the longest time, all you had to choose from was the old smock, the plastic smock, the plastic mask. That was all there was, unless your mom was going to make you one. But I was, I was happy. I mean, listen, I tried to get the smock that didn't have a picture of my guy or a logo, just to make it look like he was wearing, like, so you'd sort of look like you were in costume, but often you'd have a choice.
Aaron, if you'll indulge me, I do have one more video.
Okay.
Of the Hurricane Town Elementary Halloween parade. So this will give you an idea of what the kids were wearing in 1989.
Look at the poor ghost. Look at that kid. Who, the leather jacket?
Can you tell that Batman came out this year?
Yeah. Okay.
Now, watch the
Who's the kid in the red? He didn't have anything at all.
watch the Dracula. It's about ready to spread his wings here. There he is. And there I am. Look at me. Look at my majesty.
Oh, that's great.
God, Boat, how do you see
Look
out
at
of
that. It's like 2.5 cows.
How do you see out of that?
So we'll go back and we'll slow it down a little bit here. So so as you can see, I've got it tucked behind the ear there.
Yeah.
And if you look if you cross your eyes, you can see out of the one eye hole there. How that works.
Very good, Boat. That's good stuff, man. You know, I wanted to touch on something that Flack said a minute ago, because it reminded me of when I was a kid, and that was you know, the fact that he went out twice to get candy, you know, that shtick. And it's not that, which I did that as well, but I don't know if this translated. Since Boat, you and Brent are younger than me and Flack, I'm going to ask you. I'll ask the people in the chat this too. When I was a little kid, like, Halloween was the biggest deal. It was the biggest deal. I mean, it was a huge deal. I couldn't wait to get out there, and we looked forward to it for like a month. We were ready to go, and I mean, every kid was out. The roads were full. It was a huge event, and I took it very seriously. Like, I never just threw something on. I mean, until I got older, we were very serious about it. And my kid today, I mean, he sort of wavers on whether he wants to go out or not. He doesn't take it that seriously, and I don't think he cares that much about it. And I don't think he really cares much about the candy either, which was a driving aspect. When I was a kid, I'm a big fat guy. I like to eat lots of candy. But, I mean, every kid was desperate to get this candy. I don't know if there was a candy shortage back then. I don't know what the hell was going on. Did you
Easy answer to this, Aaron.
Okay.
How often do you give your kid candy now?
Well, I don't know. I don't really think about it.
I mean, if he's like, man, I would like a Snicker bar, Dad. You'd be like, here, son. Here's a Snicker bar.
Yeah, you're right. I guess so.
And that's a large reason why it lost a lot of its specialness, was because access to candy, at least when I was growing up, I mean, even I don't remember much from when I was like preteen, so it could have been different in those years. But from like 13, which I think that's borderline when you start considering ending the whole trick or treat thing anyway. I never thought, man, I'm going to go out and get a bunch of candy, because if I wanted a bunch of candy, I'd just go, hey, Mom, like, can I have some candy? And then I would have candy. So I think that was a lot of it. Also, I enjoyed Halloween far greater as an adult than I ever did as a kid, because I could actually dress up in crazy costumes and put some imagination behind it. And I had more skill and resources to do things that I wanted to try costume wise. So I love Halloween, but I loved it from like my mid 20s or early 20s to about 32 or 33 was the best time for Halloween for me, not as a kid.
You know, I want to chime in with something from the chat here. Sloopy Malibu chimed in. When I was 13 to 17, my mother would put a scarecrow on the front porch at the beginning of October using some old clothes. And then on Halloween night, I would get in the clothes and sit in the chaise lounge on the porch. Terrifying kids was almost as fun as getting candy. Well, it was better, except Reese cups. Nothing is better than those. And excellent. I agree with that. I've seen people pull that trick before. But do you agree with that assessment, Boat, in terms of the candy was more of a hot commodity back in the day, and you enjoy Halloween now as an older person than you did when you were young? Does that
Absolutely. Like when I was a kid, my parents were like pretty strict when it came to like handing out candy. And Halloween was the only time of the year where we could just go nuts, like when we got back, and we could eat as much of it as we could. And I got sick every year because I ate as much of it as I could. But
I've seen that happen.
Yeah. I also remember like all the nasty candy that you'd always get, like Bit O' Honey. Does anybody like Bit O' Honey?
Hey, that's all right.
It's no good. That's no good.
The biggest problem with Bit O' Honey is people think it lasts forever. No, like fresh Bit O' Honey, when it's still edible, it's still its tender form is okay. But Bit O' Honey goes off in an instant, and people will keep it around for millennia. It's like honey never goes bad. It's like, no, this is different, guys.
Okay, so maybe I've just never had fresh Bit O' Honey.
You know, listen, when I was a kid, I bet Flack will back this up. You would get homemade stuff a lot. Like you would get, and not just that, but like also a pack of raisins, apples, fruit would be in there. So Bit of Honey was like double gold compared to a yellow apple or some raisins in there. You want the good stuff in there. So Bit of Honey's not that bad.
I think I've told this story before, but again, my neighborhood, it was exactly a mile all the way around. And opposite of my house, I lived in one corner, and on the opposite corner, so this is a half-mile walk, was this lady that gave away homemade popcorn balls for Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is that every year you got it, then you come home and your parents would be like, you can't eat this. I mean, it was like wrapped in a napkin, you know, it wasn't like some store-bought thing. And my parents go nuts. They're like, you can't have this thing, you know? And so she required you to bring a note from your parents. Like you had to bring a note that says, yes, it's okay to have this. And let me tell you, I mean, I was good at forging my parents' signature when it came to report cards or field trip notes. But what are you going to write a fake note on when you're out trick-or-treating? Like you're going to, on the backside of a Bit of Honey, you're going to write, my kid can have a popcorn ball signed my mom. Like,
yeah.
It's not going to work, you know?
But Flack, I want to ask you, because we haven't tried on you. Again, for me, the Halloween was the best when I was a kid. I mean, I had more fun as an adult, and I think it's become more of an adult-centric holiday than it was when we were kids. But what about you? I mean, do you feel like you have more fun now than you did when you were a young fella going out in your costume with your buddies?
You know, I think it's just different phases of it. And I've enjoyed, and I think you and I grew up in the golden era where when we were kids, like, you know, in the 70s, late 70s, but definitely the 80s, there was none of this. My mom never said, don't forget to get a flashlight. Don't forget to put on your reflective tape. I went trick-or-treating, walking through traffic as a ninja. I mean, I was dressed head to toe in all black with, you know, one strip that you could see my eyes and a sword. I walked around the neighborhood at night with a sword and some nunchucks, you know? So, I mean, it was just, I think we had just the best era of trick-or-treating. And then, you know, you get older and we had Halloween parties. So that was different, you know, but it was still enjoyable. And then I got to go through trick-or-treating with my kids, you know, and to circle back around to something that you said, I've had my kids do this when they were younger. They would say, I want to be a clown. And so you go get a clown costume and you get a clown wig and you get all this stuff. And the day before or the day of, they go, I want to be something else. No, when I was a kid, like when I decided I was going to be a ninja, I probably started playing on that in September. I mean, it was like I had one goal, like this was going to be my costume, and you built up to that, and that was Halloween, you know. But I've done all the phases. I've taken my kids trick-or-treating, and now, like last year, my son's now in college, and my daughter went to a Halloween party, and so now I'm at this tail end of it where now I'm the guy that sits at home and hands out candy, and it's kind of fun, but you just have to, I mean, if you're the type of person that enjoys Halloween, you'll find something no matter what phase of it you're in. So, I mean, it's different the older you get, but I still love it, you know? I still enjoy it.
Yeah, you know, I've been looking through the chat here. I'm enjoying some of the stuff you guys are writing. And one thing, we talked about this with Thailand earlier. We got Cammy in here. Everybody knows Amigo Cammy. She writes, Halloween was never a big deal in Australia when I was little. So when I moved into my own place, I made sure to decorate the house and built a haunted maze in my front yard, put up flyers all around town, and created Halloween for our neighborhood. Hundreds of kids started to trick-or-treat after that. That's a great story. I mean, that's outstanding. So you brought the holiday with you, and I think that's good. I know I've read that it's not only is it not a popular holiday in Australia, but some people straight up hate it. So I know that's a problem down there. But it's good to see someone's taking the traditions with you. You know, Brent, you did bring up a good point. I think Brent fell apart over there. But Brent brought up a good point when he talked about kids getting candy year round and stuff. I hadn't thought about that, but maybe that's what it was, because getting the candy was number one. And I was like, Flack, I'd be doubling up on the trips out, and it would just be maybe one or two different pieces on the uniform, and I'd go back out and hit the whole trail again. I will say one thing that's changed for going around to Halloween is I'm going around Monday with my kid, and I get way more beat down than I used to. I'm not looking forward to the 5-mile trek around my neighborhood getting all this candy. I don't have a golf cart or roller skates or anything. I'll be out there hoofing it up and down these hills. In West Virginia, when you go out on trick or treat, man, it's not a nice flat surface. You're hoofing it.
Let me tell you something that's changed. When I was a kid, and we're talking about trick or treating, the build up was to Halloween. The build up was to October 31st, and that was the day that you trick or treated. And I've told this story, but there was a year when my son was about 8 or 9, and they did trick-or-treating the week. It was like a Thanksgiving. Halloween was like on a Saturday or a Sunday. And he went to daycare after school, and they said, bring your costume and we're going to go trick-or-treating. And so they took the kids trick-or-treating to different buildings at work or whatever. He did that. And then that Wednesday they had Haunt the Zoo, and the kids went to the zoo and they got to go trick-or-treat. You paid a fee, And Friday night they had Haunt the School, and it was at the high school, and you went and you paid money, and the kids got to do that. And then when Halloween came around, I think we might have even snuck in a trunk or treat, and then you went and did that, which was definitely not a thing when I was a kid. And so when Halloween came around, my kid said, I'm kind of over it. I've never been angrier. Like, I was like, you put on that costume and you get out there and you go get some candy. I was so mad. I was like, you don't tell me on Halloween that you're not going to go trick-or-treating. And so I just don't remember this many events as a kid. They've got the fall festival thing. I mean, they just have so many different things.
Yeah. There's a lot to choose from, all these trunk or treat and stuff. But I mean, I'm like you, and you mentioned this when we talked about it last year. It's like I'm a traditionalist. I always urge my son to go out. He's never let me down so far, and so this year will be, of course, as I get older, and now maybe the trunk or treats are looking pretty good.
It's less walking.
Yeah,
sure.
No kidding. As we start to wind this down, because heck, we've almost hit the window here at 2-hour mark. I want to thank everybody for turning out. And Boat, boy, I'm sure glad you got to set in with us, my friend.
Hey,
you really
I did
lifted
get
the show there, my friend.
I got some feedback back from Eep.
Yeah.
It looks like the Spirit House, cost of the Spirit House was about $1,000.
Oh.
And and then there was also a fee for the guy to do some sort of special ceremony.
Oh.
So not cheap, the old Spirit House.
That I really enjoyed that. And for those folks that came in late on the raid or whatever, I urge you to go back. Check out earlier in the show where Boat talks about the Thai tradition of a spirit house, including stories. Good stuff. I want to thank everyone that participated in the chat. We really appreciate you guys coming out. I know this is outside the norm for our channel, but we like to celebrate Halloween, get caught up in the tradition, and have a little bit of fun every year. and talk to people. But thanks for Mitsuyama for sending in his story. Thanks to the Brent, who apparently fell over after we went off the air. But luckily, don't worry, his wife says she texted him. He's not dead. I don't know what happened over there. Probably his chair just tipped over. It wouldn't surprise me. Listen, before you guys run off, I want to mention... Oh, God, he's back. Thank you, Brent, for scaring the crap out of me. I appreciate that. What a knucklehead. Flack, it's always a pleasure to work with you, my friend. It's always an honor and a privilege for me to sit down and do anything with you, my good buddy. I hope you guys have a great Halloween out there in Oklahoma.
It's just hitting the right weather. I think it's supposed to be high 50s, maybe low 60s, possibly a little bit of drizzle. Absolutely perfect. I'll be handing out candy and just enjoying this new phase of Halloween. Enjoying my 12-foot skeleton.
I love it. And Brent, I see that you have been inducted into the Sith, which is dandy. Look at that. My God, creepy. I got to work with this guy on Sunday, everybody. So, no fun. Listen, thanks again, everybody. We're going to throw you guys over to the Teen Speaker regulars. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next year. Adios.
Adios.
You have just experienced Conversations from the Darkside. Until next week, try to enjoy the daylight.